I would say like a common situation that we find people in is, let's say, like this entrepreneur poverty place where you have a business, it is producing, but it's never enough to actually live and thrive off of. I mean, like it's just like it's covering the bills types of thing. Like you're having enough just coming in to keep the lights on, basically. And that's where a lot of people are at, because
Welcome back to Sweat Success Podcast. And if you've ever been in a position where you're running your business and you're going, I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know how to generate more revenue. I'm trying to figure things out. You feel like you're spinning your wheels. I want to introduce to you Justin Hanover of Fitness Revolution. He's the head of client success. And I tell you, he's worked with a lot of different gym owners just like you, fitness businesses just like you. And he's helped them grow from their pain point where they're strapped for cash, they're trying to tighten the belt, they really can't make progress, to a thriving business in a very short period of time. Most of the customers that work with Fitness Revolution, their average customer stays with them. The average gym owner that works with them stays for 6 years. Okay. If that tells you anything, then what you need to know is you got to listen in. Okay. Justin gives you the platform that you need to focus on in order to make your next raise in your pocket. Okay. How do you put more money back in your pocket? He's going to tell you right off the bat. So first few minutes into this episode, you're going to hear it directly from him. Thanks for joining. So let's talk about Fitness Revolution and kind of what you're doing there, because you have had exposure to owning your own business. You've had exposure to even running podcasts. You've been exposed to a lot of gym owners, and a lot of what I've seen, from my own experience, and this is kind of going to be beneficial for me as well. A lot of the questions are my own personal questions for my own benefit, and hopefully it helps other people. But, I look at this, and when I was at the point of growing my business, I myself had this idea that, I'm a solo act, and I was successful, and I did this on my own, and I can continue doing these things on my own. I don't need anybody else. I don't need a team around me. And then I started realizing, well, that's not so true. I actually need team members. And then I realized that I need people that are better than me at other things. I was real gung-ho about thinking, I know what I'm doing. I don't need anybody else to help me. Nobody knows better than I do because this is my own business. The reality is, for me, there were times when I was, in a funk, and I needed that other person, or I needed somebody else in a different area that could explain something better than I could, or had knowledge, an area of expertise that I didn't have. And if it's always hindsight for everyone, like if you can go back and tell your younger self, hey, your future self says do these things because you'll be better at it if you do. That would be me today, right? I'd be telling my younger self, hey, don't be so arrogant, don't be so pushy in the fact that you might know everything, because I didn't. And I would have gone out and gotten coaching. I would have gone out and listened to others who've been successful. And you hear this a lot. Surround yourself with people who've done it before, model after what they've done. And that's pretty much what you're doing, right? I mean, you are that coach. You're within a group, Fitness Revolution. They've been around for 17 years or maybe a little longer.
Yep.
And
a little longer,
you guys are working with coaches. So I want to first start there. What is the primary thing that people come to you for? What's the number one thing they come to you for?
Boiling it down is essentially building a profitable, successful fitness business. I mean, it's like the essence of it. I mean, of course, obviously, like there's more parts of it that we're going in with them, but the overall focus is to make sure that they're building a successful business that is profitable, that it's providing the way that they want it to be providing for their family, for their time, for their financial freedom, for the impact that they want to be having. Those are like the core things that we're after and solving for them and getting them to that point. And to a point where kind of what you're saying, like, it's so true. I mean, like I went through the same thing with my business when I first started it. Like you have some success early on, things, and you start thinking like, okay, I'm the gift to business here. Like I got this figured out, and that is like the kiss of death mentality when it comes to business, and I think that's why to some degree, especially people who are newer in business, have to experience some uh, fall on your face moments, because like that's what's going to wake you up and realize that it's like, okay, this isn't just about me. This isn't just about what I know. This is about obviously like building a successful business. And sometimes it's not always about, especially as you start growing and expanding and building a team out, it's not always about, like some people get trapped in this mentality of thinking like, oh yeah, well, if I can do it better, then why am I hiring someone? Like, well, that's not the point. Like the point is to start leveraging your time so you can effectively serve more people.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you are then moving your priorities and focus to where you're best used. Creating content or something like that, I mean, like, isn't always going to be the best use of your time. So we need to make sure that your focus is aligning with actions that are going to directly impact not only the future growth, but stability of the business.
So you're talking about something that I think is hitting home, at least for some of the listeners, certainly for me. And that is when you get into business, I remember, I tell the story all the time. When I was young, I had this idea of owning my own gym. I had this idea of, being a physician. I always had that nurturing sense. And I think that's the same case for a lot of fitness business owners. They come from that nurturing background. It's not just the books. It's not just the financials. And they have this passion about themselves where they truly, you said, help more people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leverage your time so you help more people. Well, I think the problem in essence is they physically want to be actually nurturing other people, truly helping other
Mm-hmm.
people. And you can only do that so much, right? There's only so much of you and so much of your time in a day that you actually can work one-on-one or work in a small group with several people. And then at that point, you hit capacity. And once you hit capacity, now you've got to figure out how to run your business. Yep. And I think that's where you guys come in. And that was something that I didn't really, it's a thing that you kind of learn through, to your point, falling on your face, right? You make some of these mistakes and you go, damn, I should have listened to the other person that was telling me to kind of do these other things or take this other path or follow the leader, the guy who's done this before. Yeah. And you don't, you find out painfully. I think we're wired that way. I, as a kid, and I'm sure you as a kid, you've done things your parents told you not to do and you do it anyway. And then you find out the hard way. So business owners, they get to a point and it's almost too late. Is it ever really too late, or can you salvage this idea of catching a falling knife? I've been in situations where I've had people want to sell me their business, and it's this old adage of like, you don't want to catch the falling knife because the thing is, it's already sinking. You can't repair it. So how do you talk to these business owners? Do you ever have a conversation with someone where you're going, sorry, buddy, like there's no help for you. Like this is it. You're done. Or do you go, well, let's look at the picture and see how we can make this work, because your guys' services do cost money, right? And that was the challenge that I had. I was like, I'm not paying for that because that's extra money, and that extra money I need in my pocket. I don't need it to be spent right now. So how do you kind of, I threw a lot at you, but I mean, these are the questions that really go through the minds of these business owners, and it almost doesn't make sense, especially when they're struggling so much. They don't have that extra revenue. How do they go afford coaching? How do they go afford somebody to help them get their business back on track?
Definitely. Well, it's to address like kind of the point of like, is there ever a point when it can't be salvaged? I mean, to answer, like, no. It's just being aware of the landscape, what sacrifices need to be made to be able to move forward from that point. I mean, like, there's always a solution. There's always a way to move forward. It may not be something that you particularly like, because of the situation that you're in. But if you can have a clear path of how to see the light at the end of the tunnel of how you can get there, then that's worth it. Yeah, I think that's the point.
Can you give me, yeah, can you give me an example? Because I want the people who are listening to understand, like, I want them to resonate with your message, right? I want them to go, oh, well, that's me, right? Do you have an example of someone that you've worked with without naming names? Like, this was their particular situation. This is how they came to you, and this is what happened.
I think of a particular one. I mean, like I would say, like a common situation that we find people in is, let's say, like this entrepreneur poverty place where you have a business, it is producing, but it's never enough to actually live and thrive off of. I mean, like it's just like it's covering the bills types of thing. Like you're having enough just coming in to keep the lights on, basically. And that's where a lot of people are at, because essentially when you start your business, like you're starting from the passion place, and you're just like, okay, let's just serve. Like you're not really thinking business strategy, business growth mindset. So there's a lot of mistakes made in terms of getting to the point you're at right now. So that is a common place that we find a lot of people coming in at, that we usually are entering the scene at that point. So then it just becomes about, okay, we need to first separate what are the immediate pain points that we need to solve, and then what are like the long-term direction that we're going in. So we solve those immediate pain points. So if it's freeing you up and giving you some more bandwidth or time, or solving some money issues in the beginning, that's what we would be focused on initially, because obviously you can't be the best owner and be focused on growth if you're in a stressed mindset. If you're focused on the now and like just solving that immediate fire. So we understand that. Like we understand. So it's not always just about, okay, let's just go to the big picture. The big picture needs to happen, but we need to make sure that we're addressing immediate concerns that are important. So typically for those people, it's uncovering, okay, where are we missing opportunities to bring in more money or improve your profit margin, whether it's just simple like price adjustments, or if we're looking at your expenses and seeing, okay, what do we do? What's going on here? Like, how are we actually handling your finances? That in itself can easily expand your breathing room there. Then once you have some breathing room, now we can start talking about actual strategy and where we're moving down the road. But I totally understand. Like if that breathing room isn't there, then you're totally in fight or flight mode and in scarcity, and they need to just solve that problem. So that is typically like in our first month, that's what we're focusing on, is solving whatever that immediate problem is to give you breathing room. Then we can actually start making progress on either correcting some issues within the business or actually adding the right systems in place.
Okay. So I want to talk about this because I'm familiar with this concept of tightening the belt, right? So you got to squeeze a little bit. And to your point earlier, a lot of people, there's a solution. There's always a solution. There's a way, but sometimes those ways are not ones that you want to take action on, right? Because it changes your lifestyle. It requires extra effort, requires extra time, requires extra energy. You have to think differently than previously, right? You can't do the same things that you've been doing and expect different results. We've heard this one before, right?
Yep.
And you really do. You have to stop doing and being who you are. You almost have to evolve into a new person. But I remember being in a tight spot, and I remember, oh shit, I'm looking at my books and I'm crunching the numbers and squeezing. I mean, talk about squeezing where I could squeeze. I stopped squeezing to the point, like if I squeezed anymore, I'm getting rid of people, and certain people could have gone, but some of the people that I couldn't get rid of, like that was traumatic for the business. And then it's the lease. Like there's certain things that you just can't change, right? You have your lease, which has a price point. You have your expenses on your equipment. But I want to talk about that because how do you navigate that with a business owner who's stuck in a lease, who's bound to this personally, and also through their business, through their LLC or whatever. Hopefully they set up an LLC or some kind of corporation, so they have some protection.
Yeah.
That's a completely different topic.
Mm.
But how do they have those conversations? How is it realistic? Have you seen landlords be a little bit more amenable and flexible with tenants?
Mhm.
Have you seen uh, equipment companies be flexible with tenants to help them kind of get through some of these rough times when they are having a rough time, and maybe extend their lease or you give them options? Are those areas where they have some flexibility, and how do you navigate that?
Absolutely. I mean, we've definitely have helped clients navigate negotiation conversations, if you will, with different situations. And just like any conversation or sales conversation you're coming into, it's uncovering, okay, what does this person want? What matters most to this person? And how do we present a win-win for each party involved? So, I mean, it's no different than having a sales conversation. So you're not just going to come in there making demands and expect someone to be receptive to that. So it's about having an actual real conversation, being honest with the situation, knowing what's important to that person on the other end, and what they need as well. Because I mean, they have needs, they have things that need to be met. So you can't ignore that just because of the problems you're dealing with. And as long as you are respectable to that and you acknowledge that and provide a solution that takes that into consideration, it definitely opens the door to be moving in that direction to have the outcome happen that you're looking to have happen. So that absolutely is something that you shouldn't shy away from if you find yourself in that position and where that is needed. I mean, it's everything is negotiable. It just depends how you present it.
Okay. And have you guys worked with landlords and maybe equipment companies to help them negotiate those lease negotiations, or redo a lease or have an extension on it?
I mean, we don't obviously personally talk to
Sure.
the landlords or anything like that. And we'll provide the coaching support for our client to help them navigate the situations. So they're the one actually like obviously having the conversation. But yeah, so we won't actually like step in on their behalf and talk to them.
Okay, perfect. So takeaway here is that, the reality is everything's solvable,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to be willing to have those conversations. So there are fixed costs, and sometimes you get in these leases. I had a conversation with a girl a couple of weeks ago, has a fitness center, and she's actually paying to basically have a place to work out, right? Because she likes working out there at her gym. She doesn't want to let it go. She's underwater, and she easily could just sell her members to the competition down the street and be good. But she's not doing any of the things that I think we're about to talk about next, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is helping with the growth. She's completely squeezed on all her expenses. She's tightened everything up. She's basically a solo act now, and she has no money. Right? She's upside down every month, and she comes out of pocket to pay every month. I think it's a couple grand
Wow.
just to have a place to work out. Right? It's like a really nice garage gym, right? That you have.
Yeah.
So then you look at this and you go, all right, well, how do I generate more revenue? How do I have more income in the door to cover that expense and then go to the next phase? And you mentioned price increases. And I think everyone that I know that I've ever talked about price increases, all of a sudden their behind starts to tighten up. They literally like squeeze, right? Because they don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Because they're fearful if they do that, what happens? All of their customers say bye-bye. Right? So you've been in this situation. Do price increases work?
Absolutely. And again, it comes with the presentation of it. If you just send like a very abrupt email that it's like, hey, your price is going up, that's about it. Then yeah, expect backlash because especially with these types of businesses where it's relationships are important. So people want to feel like they're part of what's going on. They want to understand, okay, this is the rationalization behind it. This is what's happened. This is what we've been providing. This is what we've been adding to your service for you. And this is this is understanding. So you help them walk through the understanding of why it's whatever 20% increase.
How do you approach it? Can you walk me through an approach? Because I want to give the listeners like they're listening to this and they're going, okay, that's great, but how do I approach it? Like, it's kind of like the role play sessions that you do in sales, to practice and practice and practice. And then they get done listening to this recording and they go, well, he said, don't send an email. So I'll send a text. Right.
Yeah.
So it's no different. So
Yeah, I guess it depends on the style of your business and how big your business is. Uh, let's say if like you're just starting and you have your private clients, basically like something like that, like under 30, 40 clients, then it's like set the time to talk with them in person. Do it in person. Like there's no reason why you should not be able to have a conversation with each one of your clients at that level. Once you start getting to like 50 plus clients, then it's about sending you. I would do like a handwritten letter, mail to them, and then you can do a follow-up email just to make sure that they received the letter, type of thing. But it's important. What to take away from here is the personalized approach as much as possible. Like you want to have that human connection, because like people respond to that. If they just start seeing you as some like faceless company, then great. Now you've made the separation easy for them. You have to be able to see, they have to see you and your team as like people, like that you're actually like people behind this business, running this business. So having the personalization in interactions like this is crucial. If you come across cold, that this is just like a corporate type of maneuver, then expect backlash, expect people to not be happy. But you treat them as people and you treat them with respect and you have a relationship in the forefront, you're going to have a positive outcome. And then you also then have to take into consideration too that yes, you will most likely lose some people, but the price increase overcomes that.
What do you typically see in loss? Like, because you guys have done this before with increases in rates, and you said 20%. So I'm assuming that's kind of like the marker that you guys use as a 20% increase. Am I just like assuming too much here, or is that pretty accurate?
I would say it falls in that ballpark of like increase of pricing in that range. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on, some people have not changed their rates in years. Yeah, I mean, so it all depends on the business itself, but it'll say somewhere around that range is usually a healthy increase.
Okay. So I want to use sorry, Justin. I want to use a real life scenario because I want to give these people some meat. I'm going to extract as much as I can out of you because you've got this knowledge, and I want to give them reason to be working with you if they choose that, and if not choosing to work with you or your group, I want them to understand how they actually can approach this on their own if they're literally at the point of like almost bankruptcy, right? How can they take a step today and take action on price increase today? How do they approach that? Right? Because if their approach is wrong, they're going to crash the plane and everything's screwed, right? I mean, they might as well just burn their business on fire right now and light it and be gone. So let's take some real life scenarios, okay? Because you have expertise in this. The 20% price increase, let's just go with that. What's the average ticket that someone's charging that's in a bad spot that you guys work with?
Bad spot, I would say around, like, say if it's for like group training, something like that. Because I mean, obviously there's different services, but let's just say we're using group training, so that's a pretty standard type of service. If they're charging around the $100 a month range,
okay, 100 per month, and then we're going to take them up to 120. Is that? You tell me, because I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was like minimum. I mean, the goal is to get as close to like 150 a month as possible. Okay. I mean, that's usually like if you're in the 150 a month range, you can be profitable.
Okay, so now you have a number of clients that is typical in these scenarios, like 50, 100, 150, 300. What is it?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a little under 100 clients. Like you're in like that 50 to 70 range.
You know, you're probably doing anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 a month. And you now can basically up that by 7,500 to, what is that, 10 grand roughly?
Yeah.
10, 11 grand a month. So it's actually a pretty decent jump. So How do you first have the conversation with these 50 to 70 clients? What's the approach? You tell me. Like, you're the gym owner who's in this position and I'm the client. I'm paying $100 a month. How do you approach me to make sure that I'm not jumping ship and going to your competitor down the street?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple scenarios that you can take with this. Like if you're coming at it from like the perspective, like you were saying, like that, this is like, I need to, like, this needs to happen or I'm burning everything down basically. Then meet with people, like make the time, like block out your entire schedule for 2 weeks, and every day like you're meeting with every client, like meeting with them and having meetings. Like this is a priority, like, and so it should be seen as a priority in your scheduling, and nothing else matters at this point. So meet with every one of your clients. That would be the strategy. If you're in this place where this has to work or you're out of business,
Okay, so
make it
how
a
do I
priority.
have that meeting?
Yes.
How do I have that meeting, and how do I approach the conversation of having the meeting? Because if you've ever been in a relationship before, at least I have in the past, where I'm getting ready to break up with a girl or they're getting ready to break up with me, and they say, "Hey, I want to meet with you. I want to talk with you." And you're going, "Oh shit, this is not good because something bad's about to happen." How do you have the conversation so it doesn't seem so daunting to the client,
Mm-hmm.
and they're willing to have a conversation with you? Right? Are you
Yeah.
actually scheduling a meeting with them, or are you just kind of like grabbing them to the side as soon as they come in? Like, "Hey, can I grab you real quick?"
No, you want to schedule a meeting and treat this again, make this about the client, not about you. So
Okay.
make it around like, hey, like we want to make sure we're booked. I want to get your next success session booked. So we can talk
Mm,
about where you were at, what you've achieved so far, and what like kind of the
mm,
roadmap is for you moving forward. So make it about the client. And in that meeting, then you're able to then highlight like obviously like the path that they've been on since they've been with you, like how much they've achieved since then, the growth they've accomplished, the things that you've added into the service since they've joined, and what you're going to be doing moving forward, and how you're going to be improving the service and adding more to it or something like that, and like and how it's going to translate to their goals being achieved, either faster or easier for them. So I mean, like if you make it about them and how they're going to win from this situation, it makes it a lot easier than at the end. And when you're able to then present them, like, just so you are aware, because of these adjustments and these changes that we're adding in and how we're improving the service for you and allowing it to actually become easier for you to hit your goals, we do have to have a slight price increase, from what's over say return 120 to 150 a month. And that will take place on whatever you have, like your set date, like when you're going to have that
November.
transition happen. And then you also then, I mean, you can, if you want to get some cash up front, you can give like, say, a set amount of like, say if you want to allow for 10 clients to pay in full at the current rate before the date of the switchover, great. Okay, now you got an injection of cash coming in. They keep the same rate for another year. And then you still have your transition happen, with the new rates. So you can have a little double thing happen there of have an immediate cash influx coming in, plus knowing that your rates are going to be increasing, having a quality conversation with the client. So it's not only just about the pricing, you're talking about their goals and where they're going with things too. So then it only helps you further understand where they're at and making sure that they're moving forward in the right direction. So then it becomes a win-win for everyone. So that typically is usually the best way to approach something like this.
Do you mind role playing this a little bit? Because I know this, uh, that a lot of these gym owners, okay, because they come from this nurturing sense, right? In their early days, they were probably hesitant to ask for money. They were probably hesitant to ask for a payment method. They were probably okay with taking cash, and okay not setting people up on subscriptions, and okay that the client didn't bring a check during the next session that they're supposed to pay for their monthly dues, right? They just kind of like burden it, and they're like, okay, well, Jody's going to bring that next time, she said, and
Mm-hmm.
Jody continues to miss, right? So all of a sudden, just because that's our nature, right? I mean, we just want to help.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden we're in this position where we're not collecting fees because we're always at the forefront of helping first. So the money's not coming in, right? So this is typically a sticking point for a lot of business owners, is asking, because they've already asked for the money. So now it's like, I'm going to increase your rates. Like, how do I have that conversation so I don't have Jody pissed off at me, who I go to lunch with every, couple weeks, or Bob, who, we have coffee every morning, because now they become a friend, right? They bring me Christmas presents. They bring me gifts on my birthday. For me to ask for extra money kind of feels like the wrong thing to do. So can you role play that with me a little bit? Because I want them to hear it from you, because you guys are doing this coaching. You're talking with these gym owners and they're seeing success with this, right?
Yeah.
For that price increase. So how do we do that? All right. Let's say I'm in your office now, because you're going to do a success meeting with me. And what's the dialogue we're having?
Well, I guess we don't have to go through the whole thing, but let's jump in. So let's say that we've already walked through your goals. Like you've been, like, say, you've down 10 pounds, you've been increasing your strength, you're finally building consistent habits. So like that's all been kind of like uncovered. And now let's kind of like pick up where, we'll walk, like, talking about the services, like what we've added and what we're going to be adding. So
are you value stacking at this point? Like you're finding things that you're going to add. Mm-hmm. So you recommend the business owners to actually make sure that they're adding something else.
Yeah. Well, that should be like, first and foremost, not necessarily adding, but like making sure your service is good. Like, okay. Like people often overlook that it's like, is your product exceptional? Like, if it's not, then you need to revisit it and make sure that it is exceptional. I mean, because it's like, that is definitely, there's no room in the marketplace right now, especially for mediocre or low performing offers, like, and services. So that definitely is top priority. Like, your service has to be good. Okay. And you should be willing to always be obviously improving it, increasing it, like, and like not staying or accepting status quo. Because like then that also just makes it easier to, when you do have to have price increases, people see that you are actively making things better, improving things, revisiting old ways. I mean, like, it's just, that's important. And that should be visible. You should make that very well known. That is a priority. And when you do make changes, make it known. Because like, that's just, again, adds value and people appreciate that.
Okay. So now we've done this. You're hitting me with the list of things that you're adding. So how do you bring this topic up?
Yeah. So, Michael, I mean, with the goals that you're looking to achieve, I know you still want to get another 10, 20 pounds down. And we've been kind of talking how you've been sticking on the nutrition and getting stuck in that area. So I'm excited to like inform you that we're actually adding in a specific nutrition coaching into our programs specific to each client. And it's going to include like different nutrition coaching, meal prepping plans for you, grocery lists, like everything that comes into knowing what to eat and when to eat it is going to be figured out for you. And you just follow the plan. With that, do you see that helping you become more successful?
Oh yeah.
How so?
Yeah, I've had a hard time. Well, I just had a hard time trying to figure out what meals I should be like making. This is actually me. Like, I actually have problems figuring out what freaking meals to make. I mean, my mother always tells me, as soon as your feet hit the floor, know what meal you're making for dinner at night. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge, because I've got, 4 kids, I'm married, and, everybody's at the house. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the day, I don't know what I really should be eating. So I hit those, you guys keep talking about these macros that I'm supposed to hit. And like, that's a tough thing for me.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. I mean, and that's exactly why we're going to be adding in that service into our plan moving forward, to make sure that we're correcting that pain point. And the goal is to remove as much friction as possible with making habit changes with something like that, especially when it comes to nutrition, because that's really what it's about. It's about changing your habits, changing your thought process when it comes to nutrition. So that is going to be now available for you moving forward. And then on top of that, we also know that obviously being able to have more touch points and interactions with your coach, especially during your workouts, is extremely important to your success. In making sure that you're really getting the attention that you need. And you would agree with that, right? Like having the right attention and making sure that you're doing exactly what you need to be doing every workout is beneficial.
Yeah, I would say like in the beginning, I was seeing more progress. I probably
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen as much lately.
Exactly. And we see that and we acknowledge that. And that's why we're addressing that moving forward too. So part of that is we're going to be making sure that we're capping our small group even smaller than what we're doing right now. And because of that, we're going to add on an additional coach. So we're bringing on an additional coach. We're cutting our class sizes down by a few people to make sure that the coach per client ratio is appropriate so that every client is getting the appropriate attention that they need every session to ensure that it's quality every time you walk in this door and you leave feeling amazing. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that actually. I was thinking the classes were getting a little big.
Excellent. Yeah, we're right on target. We've had some feedback around that, so we understand that, and that's something we want you to know too. That we take that feedback seriously, and we're always about innovating and making sure that we're moving in the right direction for our clients, so that you guys are able to win and that you're able to hit your goals. That this is a place that is not only about community and that you're enjoying the people you're being around, but you are at the end of the day getting where you want to be. And these changes need to happen to make that happen. We can't stay the same that we are and expect you guys to keep growing. So we understand that and we acknowledge that. So that's why we're also making that change moving forward. So now keeping in mind with those changes that we have moving in forward, it does make it so that we have to make an adjustment with our memberships. And again, that's only with keeping in mind that we want to make sure that you are getting where you need to be, that this is a place of results, that this is a place that your investment is coming back to you tenfold. So with that in mind, we're just going to have a slight price increase. That's going to happen 2 months from now. It's going to take you from 120 a month to 150 a month. And keeping in mind, we're adding in the nutrition. So you get a completely dialed in nutrition program and coaching moving forward to make sure that we're addressing that issue. And then we're also adding an additional coach for you to make sure that your user experience in your workouts every time are phenomenal, so that you're getting exactly what you're paying for, and then you're getting where you want to be moving forward. So with that in mind, are you let me not say are you. So I mean, with that in mind, uh, are we okay to keep using the same card that we have on file moving forward 2 months from
Mm.
now?
Yeah, perfect. I like what you did there. You know, for those of you who are listening, probably some of the questions that are popping in your head, because this is happening for me, and then I'm just trying to. I'm kind of a little bit of a weird guy because I like have a bunch of talks with myself while I'm going through this meeting. But if you're like me, you're probably questioning, well, shit, you know, I don't have money to hire somebody else. Well, crap, I can't size down my class. Wait, hold on. I'm supposed to add nutrition. Let me just say this, okay? Because what Justin is saying seems like he's adding more to your plate, but you also have to recognize the fact that what he's doing for the client, me being the client, if you know, in this role play scenario, is that I'm immediately in my head, like, because I really try to get in the character and think about what he's saying to me. And in my head, and if you're in that same position where you're trying to be that customer of your own business, I'm listening to him. I'm going, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So if you're just looking from that position, you're going, this isn't too bad at all. Like I'm okay paying extra money for the things he just mentioned, and the fact that he just positioned it that way and the way he asked for the payment makes me feel comfortable. Now, obviously, there's other objection handling scenarios that we'd have to go through on a separate call, but the the format in which he presented the information makes me comfortable as a client. And I'm sure you probably see that. Now, then the question is, how do I add extra nutrition coaching? How do I add that other person? And I'm just going to be brief here, Justin, because I probably, you know, I've been through this, right? So I know the value of it. And it is the nutrition component I myself, and you as a business owner may be experiencing these same things. I have the same problem. I try and figure out what to freaking eat throughout the course of the day, especially when you have a big family and everybody has their input on what they want to eat, right? It makes it pretty complex. Well, there's plenty of AI tools out there today. And I just did this, I did this like 3 days ago because I was trying to create a program that hit all of my macros. And I told ChatGPT, here's my caloric needs. Here's my protein, fat, and carb needs. Here's the percentages. And I have no allergies. Went through the whole list. Create meal plans for me for the next 3 days. I try and give it a small window so it's not having to create like, a year's worth of information. And then I'll do that. I'll ask it to repeat it for the next 3 days and then the next 3 days. So now I have a meal planning program. And you as a coach, you have enough insight to know what your clients like and don't like. And you also have enough insight to know how you can make it and tailor it to your customer. And on top of that, there's like really inexpensive nutrition tools out there that you can get. And, $2 a client, you pay for it, right? And you get this whole nice PDF printout. You put your logo on it. On top of that, with the adding a coach and sizing down the group, that's just something you have to bite the bullet on. I mean, in reality, if you're going to get something, plan on giving something. Okay. So I want to stop there on the price increase because the next thing I want to talk about, because we're running short on time, the next thing I want to talk about is so now they've increased price, boom, instant increase in revenue, right? They have that now. Okay. Maybe you lost a few people, but the people that you lost is pretty minimal. You can attest to that, right, Justin? By percentage, what do you guys typically see when you have a price increase?
I would say between 5 and 8% is where it'd be, but that it more than covers in the price increase.
So plan for a 10% loss.
Yeah.
Okay. Increase your price, do it the right way, frame it the right way, and plan for a 10% loss in customers. Okay. So now it's not $150 per customer you lost. It's $100 per customer times 10. So it's $1,000. You're going to make that up. You're going to more than double that amount just by having the other people paying, right? Naturally, your class sizes go down because you lost, a handful of people, and that makes it more intimate. And then I would imagine, what's the next step that they need to do now that they've had a revenue increase? What is the very next step they need to do?
Well, the next thing then is the marketing, fixing your marketing machine, basically. So, I mean, like now you've addressed the immediate pain point of the money and having some breathing room. Now you can't stay there. Now we need to make sure that obviously we're having a marketing machine in place where you are consistently bringing in new people, building new awareness. That has to be happening. So that would definitely be the next focus from there. And depending on where you're at financially at this point, I mean, there's different methods. I mean, like the people always say like, oh, I don't have money for ads and all this stuff. I mean, honestly, you shouldn't even be thinking about ads at this point. Ads is not something that's something you do when you have a budget for ads. That's not something you do after you just get out of a tight situation and like, let's go spend money on ads. No, at this point, I mean, it's a little bit of grassroots, putting the extra effort in and getting people to build your awareness. That can be simple as deciding, okay, I'm going to email 50 new people a day and build new awareness and start conversations. Like there's little actions that you can be doing that, yes, they're maybe time consuming up front, but those are going to lead you to obviously the less time consuming actions that you can do for marketing, depending on where you're at, obviously income wise. It can be going out and building new partnerships with local businesses. And so, I mean, like there's a lot you can do without spending much money. It's just time right now. That's your trade-off at this point in your business. It's spending more time, spending less money. As you start evolving, increasing, then it becomes spending less time, spending more money. So, I mean, there's always a cost. It's just making sure that your cost is in alignment with where you're at in the business at that moment.
And FYI, that was not me. I was the ignorant fool who figured out how to increase price, make a quick influx of money. And then I was the idiot that went out and started spending right away on ads. And then I had no system for it. I had no funnel for it. I was just blowing money on ads because years ago, and they still happen today, There's these advertising agencies, they call themselves,
Mhm.
and they're good at one thing, and that one thing that they're good at does not need to happen today.
Mhm.
Okay, because you're
Yep.
going to lose a lot of opportunities. They're going to feed you a lot of leads. And I remember back in the day, I was getting leads from Facebook for like $5-6. A lot of them, they wouldn't go anywhere. They were garbage. And then I had no follow up. There was
Mhm.
no follow up system. I had no CRM. I had nothing.
Yeah.
I was just getting these leads in my email and hoping one of my sales guys called them if I didn't get to it. Right. So listen to what Justin is saying. Priority number one, make sure that your business, what you're offering in your business is quality. Okay. Be a critic and let other people be critics. Don't be so hung up on yourself that you're the best goddamn thing that's ever happened in this world. Okay. You need to recognize if you're crap or if you're great.
Mhm.
And if you're mediocre, you got to raise the bar, because like Justin said, there is no freaking room
Mhm.
in our fitness space to be mediocre today. Okay. You can't do that anymore. So that's number one. Once you've identified that you can level up and you can be in that great service provider that you need to be for your customers, then you can increase price. And if you're going to
Mhm.
increase price, follow the framework Justin just gave you. Okay. It doesn't need to be word for word. Please do not be a robot where you're just copy everything that he just said and you're going to go try and replicate it, because you won't be able to. You'll sound like a robot.
Mhm.
But use the frame, understand what he was saying and where he's coming from, and how you approach that money question. You're really not asking for money. It can be just as simple as, hey, and the great thing about this is it's only going to be an extra $10 a week.
Mhm.
So you want to just go ahead and use the same card that we have on file, or you want to use something else? What works better for you?
Mhm.
Right? That kind of dialogue, that kind of insertion to drive the idea that what you're giving them, extra nutrition, extra
Mhm.
coach, extra personalization with more personalized touch and more intimate class size, all that stuff just it works itself through. Okay, so Justin, what else? I wanted just to kind of sum that up for everybody who's listening, but what else? What else do you have for them? Because I want to make sure they can reach out to you, and anything else that you want to add on the tail end of that.
No, I mean, in regards to just kind of like making that adjustment in your pricing or the
Yeah.
marketing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, you kind of subbed that up really well. I mean, in those priorities, in that order of making sure that you have a good product, and then. And one thing I want to point out too is with these things that you're adding in, your price adjustment should be accounting for those things that you're adding
Mm.
in. So you're not just choosing. Don't just choose some random price. Like, understand your numbers, understand your fixed expenses, and understand what it is that you're going to be adding in, and then you can then obviously price accordingly with your adjustment, because it doesn't do any good to make some random pick and then find yourself in the same exact position uh, a year later. I mean, like that's not the point of this. The point is so you can get some breathing room and then start growing from here. And if you don't price it accordingly based on obviously what's actually what your expenses are and what you're going to be adding in, then again, you're just creating another problem. So just take that into consideration. And then with like I said, like following the framework, it's just make it about them, make it about their goals, value stack, and then walk right in and assume the next step. Don't make it a big deal. Like, you make it a big deal, then it's going to be a big deal.
I love it, Justin. Everyone, you can find Justin Hanover at Fitness Revolution, fitnessrevolution.com. I'm going to provide his contact details as long as he allows me to in the
Of
show
course.
notes. So that way you can email him, you can contact him, you can contact their group. And Justin, just out of curiosity, would you be willing to have like a complimentary consultation call with anyone who maybe calls in or sends you an email?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always open to having a call just to walk through where you're at, and whether you move forward with us or not. My promise to you is that you're always going to leave that conversation having more clarity and knowing what you need to focus on next.
Awesome. Justin, thanks so much for being on today. Everyone, as always, you know that I'm here to provide as much value as I possibly can through bringing on great people onto the show, people who've been in the industry, those who've done it before, hopefully those who've done it more than me and more than you, and they have some real value, actionable steps that you can take along with you. So with that being said, my goal here is to make sure that I see you on the flip side. If there is something else that you need, please get in touch with me. Let me know. Hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what we're trying to figure out. This is what we're solving. Or here's my problem. We don't know the solution. More than happy to find a person who knows that stuff intimately, and I can bring them on the show. And if anybody has value, if you're listening to this today and you're like, man, that's some good stuff from Justin, please share it with somebody else who you know is going to gain from this, right? Because if they're gaining from it, you're probably going to gain from it somewhere along the way. I always say share as much as you can, because there's no reason for any of us to be on this planet just sitting around doing our thing without like exposing our knowledge to others. That's how we all grow. So once again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the flip side.